I think realizing that there's an impossible standard that you give all to work and you give all to your children simultaneously, it literally is an impossible standard. So what is there to feel guilty about? That you can't meet the impossible? Even if you are a working mom, you can carve out really meaningful time. How are we spending our time?
Welcome to the Feel Good Club podcast. This is the place where ambitious working moms learn how to elevate their well-being, increase success in all areas, and create a positive, aligned life. Whether you're here to hear expert interviews or inspiring talks, this is your space to learn and grow. I'm Tia Graham, keynote and TED speaker, best-selling author, and founder of the Feel Good Club community for high-achieving moms. I am an expert in the science of happiness. This show is here to help you feel grounded, happier, and connected to yourself and others. I know you are going to love it. Thank you for being here. Let's dive in.
Hi, Maria. Welcome to the Feel Good Club show.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here.
I want to start off by learning a little bit about your background and your story, and tell us how come you are so passionate about supporting moms in your life right now.
Yes, great question. In terms of an educational background, I studied cultural anthropology, which is the study of people and culture, how we pass meaning. So I just felt really drawn to that in terms of an undergraduate field of study. I didn't really know where it would lead. Was I going to get my PhD in anthropology? I didn't think so, but I just love studying it. And then I did a law degree, a business degree, and I've loved classes like organizational behavior or classes on emotional intelligence. I then went to work in corporate America in branding and sales. And so I've just been fascinated by people, by structures, by our culture throughout kind of my life. And then while I was working, I became a mom. And I have two kids now that are 4 and 6. Yeah. And when I had my son, who's 6, my first child, it was a little bit of a shock to the system for me. So I always wanted
a huge shock to my system. Big, massive. So yes.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of moms can relate with that as well. So the strange thing for me is I always wanted to be a mom. I was certain when I was little, all I did was play with baby dolls. My twin sister had 4 children when I had my son that ranged from probably like 8, 6, 4, and 2. And I would take them all for a week and it would be no problem for me. So I'm like, yeah, I'm good with kids.
I got it.
Yeah. What could go wrong? Diapers, whatever. It was all fine with me. But somehow when I had my son and he was a little unhappy when he was born, he wasn't super chill. He wasn't sleeping all the time. And it just felt so different. It felt so isolating to go from working. I worked, I think, up until like the Friday, and he was born on a Monday or Tuesday morning or something, so I didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. You go from like working every day, going to work, making decisions, dressing up to like, in pajamas, you've just been hit by a truck and you have this baby who's really unhappy. And I felt like I lost autonomy. Like I was like, wait a minute, if I need to shower or go to the bathroom, or if I want to think about going for a walk, I need to ask my husband, can you watch the baby? Can you hold the baby? Right.
Your time freedom.
Yeah, totally different.
Lost autonomy. I've never heard anyone say it like that, just in that way. But yeah, you've lost your personal autonomy.
Yes. And so, I was married, but, I wasn't asking my husband like, hey, can I go to the bathroom now? Is it okay if I shower now? I'm going to go to the gym. Like we didn't have to coordinate logistics like that on these things that seem so basic to me. But now all of a sudden we had to. So I think becoming a mom was kind of like, wow. Then when I went back to work, I wanted to work, but that was also hard too, because I just felt this new responsibility that was so immense. And it's for, all the childcare, but I think it's all this mental load stuff. Like, what is he going to eat now that he's starting solids? What does he have the appropriate size clothing? What all the stuff with childcare. And so it's just
Wait,
like,
can I ask you a
okay,
question? Did you,
yeah.
right when you started back at work, in addition to the whole mental invisible load and responsibility, did you also have working mom guilt?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know that I felt guilty. I would say I do have guilt at times in my motherhood, but
Yeah.
I would say that I'm somewhat less guilty than most moms.
Okay. Okay.
I don't
That's it.
feel a ton of guilt, but it's something that we can get into, and there's kind of a strategy behind it. Um, I think what I felt more than guilt was just pulled in different directions and trying to understand, like, what are my priorities in the moment? Like, how I felt like there was this expectation that I would go back to work as if I had never had a baby, and that I
Yeah.
was supposed to mother my baby as if I
As if
didn't
you
have a
didn't work.
job or an
Yeah.
existence. Yeah. So I think more than guilt, I just felt overwhelmed.
Got it. Got it. Okay. And then a couple of years later, baby number two comes along.
Yes. Luckily for me, she was a much easier baby. So I had a
Oh my
different
God, same.
experience.
Literally, my baby number two was way easier.
And I know, of course, I'd already had one child. So there is an element of maybe I was a little more prepared.
And you feel more
Um,
confident. You're like, yeah, I'm not gonna kill the thing. I don't, yeah.
but also, she was just an easier baby. She slept, she was smiling. It was totally different at the same time. So, Um, but it was great because then I understood why people like newborn babies. I didn't before. I was like, are these people joking me who say that this is a great phase? Like, I'm like, I think they're lying.
Right. Right.
So I got a little touch of both in my life, in terms of the newborn stage. But, that's really what inspired me to start the podcast, That Mom,
Yeah.
which is my passion project for supporting moms right now. Um, because through this experience, I really had to work to build a life that I loved. So, I was always in my life a little entrepreneurial, and I work from home. I've always worked from home. So I had a lot of schedule flexibility. I would still travel or maybe see customers, things like that, but go out for meetings, but I would mostly work from home. So I really embrace the challenge as like something to be solved. How can I enjoy my life? How can I prioritize the things I want to prioritize, live intentionally? And then, in motherhood, your priorities shift. So all these things I hadn't considered before, I was now considering. So that was my journey of really just creating this life that I loved while being a mother. And while, motherhood is hard, but I also think it's beautiful. So I really just wanted to enjoy it every day. What kind of fun things can I add in every day? How can I be grateful for what I have and make the hard parts a little more tolerable as I went through it?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love that. Before we hit record, we were chatting about that there is a lot of conversations around how hard motherhood is. And we were talking about paid working moms or stay-at-home moms that are unpaid, but it's still work, of course, taking care of a home and a family. Um, and there's a lot of conversations online and offline. I mean, I was just at an event, Mom 2.0, like so many conversations around like the hard part. And of course, the way United States is to mothers and for family support is very different. I grew up in Canada. Both my sisters had a year paid maternity, right? In Scandinavia, it's like significant more, more support.
Yeah.
So, from your experience and then everything you've read, and I know that you're very passionate about supporting moms, how come you think that there is so much conversation and honestly, like, there's facts around how hard it is to be a mom in the United States, whether you're working or stay at home?
Let's take a quick pause for something that can really support you. If you constantly question if you are good enough as a working mom and desperately want to feel happier, I'd love to invite you to a complimentary discovery call with me. In 45 minutes, we'll get clear on what is out of alignment, what you want your days to feel like, and 2 to 3 simple changes you can make immediately to feel calmer and more confident. It's completely free, and it's a chance for us to connect and see if the Feel Good Club for working moms or one-on-one coaching might support you. To grab a spot, go to tiagraham.com/discovery call. That's tiagraham.com/discovery call, and pick a time that works for you.
Yeah. Well, I think you brought up some interesting points about leave. Actually, I have a couple attorneys coming to speak with me in a couple weeks about maternity leave and about they run a practice helping women navigate maternity leave, which can be really complicated in the United States. So yes, I think the maternity leave piece is huge, and I can't wait to learn more in my upcoming conversation. I think in general, there is this expectation on moms that isn't put onto fathers about how much you're responsible for. So I want to dive in and understand, why is that? Why is it expected that moms handle the mental load of raising children and also work? Why is it that we feel this pressure that doesn't seem to apply to dads in the same way?
When
And
there's
so,
when there's two working women or two working parents, is that what you're talking about?
correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And
Women are
so,
still going to carry the mental invisible load.
yeah. And this is my question. Obviously, there's different ways to rearrange or arrange families, but in my situation, I'm married to a man. So I was like, why am I doing all this? Right. We're both well educated, but yet it's still like and I felt very much responsible for all this stuff too. So it's not like my husband's saying, you're responsible for this. I'm like,
It was
okay,
also
I need,
internal. Yeah.
yeah, very internalized. Like I need, and I wanted to some degree too. So I'm like, okay, where is this coming from? We know the mental load is real. Where's this coming from? So, one of the conversations I had was with Dr. Lynn O'Brien Halstein from Boston University. She's a professor of rhetoric, and she also studies women's studies, and she's written some books. And it was such an interesting conversation because she was saying to me that basically in the 70s, there was this feminist movement where women can go to work and they can earn. So great. There then became this backlash rhetoric, as she calls it, that frames how we think about everything. So they're saying, okay, the rhetoric goes, the way people speak about it, that is, goes, if you choose to work as a woman, then you can also do motherhood too, because this work was a choice, something that we fought for, right? The right to work and earn a living. So because that's seen as a choice, and that's how the media and institutions and the law would talk
And
about.
men didn't choose it. Men didn't choose women to work. Women chose to work.
Yes. Yes. And that's the rhetoric, right? So
Right.
that's the rhetoric, that's the language in media and politics and the law.
Yeah.
So, and
Yeah.
in institutions like government. So because it's women's choice, women will put all their educational resources and all their financial resources into everything that the child needs to grow up successfully because they're working. And so I think that holds true. Like, I think a lot of moms, I was like, yes, that's how I feel, that I owe, the money for childcare, not me, like as a family unit, right? But we're putting all this because we want to make sure our kids grow up successfully. We want to make sure they have everything. And I personally feel very responsible for that.
Oh, wait, let me make sure I'm clear. From this conversation is that a lot of women are working so that they can give more to their children and help their children have a successful, happy life.
Well, it's the idea really that because you chose to work, and again, I'm using this term loosely. The rhetoric is saying because as a woman and a mother, you chose to work, then you can do both. This is your choice to work, so that's a choice. And you also are still responsible for mothering. And how that's emphasized is through media, through images, through television shows, through the law. And some of the laws and policies are that we don't have universal childcare, that we don't have parental leave, right? So all these policies and institutions are kind of backing up this thought that the mother is
Like
solely
you can work,
responsible.
but you still are responsible for everything. And that's your choice and
That's right.
figure it out.
And do it gratefully, because otherwise that's not
Do it
seen
gratefully
as,
because you,
yes,
I
because
don't
it's
know
your
if you
choice.
know this stat. So my membership, the Feel Good Club, has a charity partner and it's Moms First. Are you familiar with Moms First?
No.
So it's an incredible organization at the government organization, like corporate level and then community level as well, supporting working moms. And 41% of moms in the United States go back to work when their baby is 4 weeks old.
Yeah.
Like that is like the baby is basically still, I mean, right? And so I look at that as like, is that like, what is, are 41% of women being like, oh yeah, I want to leave this 4 week old?
No, definitely not.
Like that is a huge number.
Yeah, and there's a couple things. To wrap up this conversation with Dr. Lynn O'Brien Halstein, she did say guilt is a rhetorical strategy to ensure that women continue to feel responsible, right? So that's the guilt piece I wanted to tie in.
Okay, say that again. Guilt is a
Guilt,
rhetorical strategy.
guilt is a rhetorical strategy intended to keep women, mothers, feeling responsible for mothering so that the government or institutions don't need to do that, don't need to pick up the tab for childcare or paid leave, right? So that rhetorical
So
strategy, that's,
powerful.
yes,
And
and
by
that's
the
what
way,
helped.
the moms in Scandinavia have way, 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 way less. Because I went and studied over there. I went and studied happiness in Denmark. And yeah, they don't feel the way American moms feel because they are supported.
Yes. And so that's, you asked me about guilt earlier. Do I feel guilty? And I know mom guilt is kind of like a pop culture term now. And I think because I'm so aware of cultural systems and that's kind of my background, right, which is not normal to think that way, that
Yeah.
I understand that these messages are coming at me from everywhere. So that, Dr. Lynn O'Brien Halstein also says the most radical thing a mother can do is to not feel guilty, right? So I think realizing that there's an impossible standard that you give all to work and you give all to your children simultaneously, it literally is an impossible standard. So
Yeah.
what is there to feel guilty about? That you can't meet the impossible, that you can't
Right.
be two people at once,
Right.
I think
Right.
that's what helps me. And so I hope the conversation that we're having and the conversation I had with Lynn, I hope that helps other moms to realize that too. And that if there's something you want to do or feel like you need to do, or, you're making choices about your life and your time and how you're going
Yeah.
to spend it, you shouldn't beat yourself up and feel so guilty about every choice.
Um, so powerful. There's a Oxford textbook on well-being. It's about 2 years old. And in it, there is research that has proven that being a working mom, a paid working mom, or, being a stay-at-home mom does not have a significant impact on the happiness and mental health of the children, right?
Right.
It's the other factors. It's like, is the mom happy and well? Or is there a lot of conflict in the home, etc.? Right. So there isn't any nominal research that shows that, oh, mental health of the kids are going to be worse if the mom works outside of the home or works, in the home from the home office, whatever. Yet there's so much messaging that, whether it's direct or subtle, that, and because guilt is the feeling that you are harming others or it's actually causing harm, right? So the fact that guilt is so pervasive and people talk about it, and if you go put in mom guilted, millions and millions of search answers will come, right? Because so many women feel it because they feel like they're causing harm, which,
Yeah. And I
yeah,
think to your point of if you're a working mom, you're getting these messages. And I actually talked to another interesting person, Laura Vanderkam, who wrote a few different books, but
Oh,
she wrote
yeah.
this book recently, Big Time. And she does all these time logs about successful women in particular, but also different parents. And people people do not accurately guesstimate the time. So a working mom, for example, she gives an example where a working mom is traveling during the week. She's away a couple nights, but when she looks at, she might feel like I'm never around. But when she looks at the time as a week in her data on time, she put her kids to bed more nights than she didn't. She read more to her children than most stay-at-home moms would have in the same time, according to some statistics, right? So that even if you are a working mom, you can carve out really meaningful time.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes we don't even know unless you're like really intentional or tracking your time like Laura has people do. How are we spending our time?
Yeah. No, and there's so much research because I know you were talking about the 70s and you think about like moms in the 60s and the 50s, like we are spending more time with our children, moms and dads, than any other
Mhm.
generation before. Right. And there's more women working. I know that there's been a huge exodus over the past, year and a half. I won't go to that whole reason on why women have been leaving the workforce, but we are spending a lot of time with our kids. Um, so let's switch a little bit and talk about another area that I know that you're passionate about. Um, you talk about moms being empowered to choose differently and to be intentional about what they accept, what they don't accept. And I love that you use the word empowered because that's actually the first pillar of my feel good framework is empowerment. And so I believe in it too. But I would love to hear from your experience and what you truly believe about moms being empowered to choose differently and build a life that they love. And you also talk about enjoying your life.
Yeah, I think it's just so important that we enjoy motherhood because there is all this noise about guilt. There's all this noise about social media comparison. Can be pressure. There can be perfectionism. There can be burnout. There can be all these things.
Oh,
And
stress. Yeah.
yeah, and don't get me wrong. I think motherhood, parenting even is hard. I'm not saying it's
Of
great, it's
course it is.
easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard work. So I think to balance that, I really want to empower moms, first of all, to enjoy their motherhood because I believe there's innate meaning and joy in raising children. And so while we're talking about the hard and the difficult, can we also talk about the good? And can we find ways where we're honing in on the good and intentionally choosing to spend time on the good? Um, and then when it comes to the hard and the difficult, instead of complaining about it, I mean, I think sometimes it is good to talk about it and we can get validation from these conversations, which is meaningful. Someone
Absolutely.
understands you, you feel seen. But instead of spending too much time complaining or the negative, what can change? Can you make a shift in your schedule? Could you shift careers? Could you get more help from your partner? Could you hire outside help? Could you have a system in place that does some heavy lifting for you? Could you call in on extended family or a neighbor or do some swaps, with another mom? You take their kids, they take yours.
Yep.
What could you do? Could you manage your time better? Could you have more gratitude for the things that are going well and focus more on the positive? How can you think outside the box to create a life that really works for you? And I think it's different for each mom. Whatever lights
Of
you up.
course, of course. And
Yeah.
socioeconomic, where you are, right? Like the ability, we have a nanny slash house manager. We don't have any family around. The ability that I can outsource so much is a huge privilege. So that, I when I have a lot of time where I'm just playing and being with my kids. Right? Which
Yeah.
that's not a lot of people, not everybody can do that. But but I think what you're saying is looking at what's within what you have agency over, what can you shift?
Correct. And I
Yeah.
want to empower moms wherever they're at to see the possibilities because you're right. I also am in a very privileged place where I have help with my kids. That's very reliable and I can outsource some things as well. And I've been mindful about what makes sense for me to outsource.
Yeah.
Um, but I do think there's always possibilities. So maybe it's flexibility with your work schedule or adding a work from home day.
No, and what you said, I love. I actually was just texting one of my mom friends where we, because our kids really like each other. So we swap date nights and the kids love it. So like one night, my two kids go to her house and then out on a date. And then we do that. And then her and her husband go out on a date, and it's like, it's a win-win.
That's a
And
great
that's the
example.
option. Yeah.
A great example. And also, if you have a partner that you're parenting with, you could switch off with them too, whether it's a weeknight or a morning, and a weekend morning to get some exercise or go
Yeah.
for a walk. And so,
Yeah.
yes, there's definitely things that are free or low cost. It gets a lot harder if you're solo parenting, or if you don't have extended family or reliable sitters, for sure.
Yeah.
Those are things are there, but
Yes, yes. There's actually a great TED talk, and it's a gentleman who's recently divorced, and he said, if my wife and I would have lived like we were divorced with our kids, we would still be married. Because when you're divorced, the kids go back and forth, and each parent gets breaks. And he said, when we were married, we just always were together, the husband, wife, and the kids, and no one ever got a break, and it was exhausting. And we should have given each other weekends off. We should have given each other nights off, just what you were saying. So he's saying, hey, married people, live like you're divorced and you'll stay married. And it was a really powerful message of yeah, just sharing it, and
yeah.
you don't always have to be like this tight unit. So Maria, if people want to learn more about your podcast, learn more about you, where can they go to find you?
Great. So That Mom is the podcast available wherever you find your podcasts, Apple, YouTube, Spotify, and thatmompodcast.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show, and I hope to see you soon.
Thank you for having me. It was a joy having this conversation.
Thank you for joining me on the Feel Good Club show. I hope today's episode left you feeling inspired and equipped to take on your day with confidence, self-love, and joy. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your fellow ambitious working moms. Remember, you are not alone on this journey. We're all here to support each other in feeling good and living our best lives. Until next time, take care and be hopeful. And remember, prioritize your happiness.